So the first lumber mill in this county was built by a man by the name of Culberson here in Du Bois Town. And he built it basically for his own use, to build his home and barn, and then he started selling, and eventually it grew.
So the people that we are able to follow as the closest are the woodland people, because once they started making ceramics, their style stayed the same for long periods of time.
The boom was 7 miles long. It would go from down around Arch Street to Linden. And there were 414, I think it was, trips. It was finished in 1850. A man by the name of Major Perkins came here from New England. He realized that the lumber industry was really taking off, but there was a problem of capturing those logs once they got down to Williamsport where the mills were at. So he said they needed a boom. He and another fellow formed a company, raised $1 million, and built the boom. Today that million would be about $29 million. So just imagine how much money they raised, and they had the Williamsport Boom Company. Yeah, over at the Tabor Museum, we have the log book that the museum, that the boom company used, where all the lumbermen's stamp was in the book, so they could identify whose logs was whose. The river rose, the logs went south, and there were reports of ships coming up the east coast towards Baltimore. When the sun came up, they were afraid they were going to be sunk because of all the logs that were floating. And that was in 1889. It destroyed a lot of Williamsport and most all the mills. It took them a year to recover. In the meantime, a lot of their customers moved somewhere else, primarily to Michigan, Minnesota, and found a source of lumber.
So I've read lots and lots of books, and I read first-person accounts. So I read about the chiefs, I read about the villages, I read about the people. More importantly, I try to read books about people who went and lived with the natives.
Clothespin factories, sandpaper factory, water pipe factories, and we had a W.D. Crookes door company, and I'm told that all the doors in the U.S. Pentagon were made in Williamsport at the W.D. Crookes company. And I told you that the two most sought after trees were the white pine and the hemlock. They wanted the white pine to use for ships, and the hemlock, all they wanted was the bark. They would peel the bark off, leave the tree lay in the woods, and I never quite understood why they couldn't use the remainder, but they would take the bark and take it to the tannery and use the resin that was in the bark in the tanning process. And in those days, they say that there was at least one tannery in every county in Pennsylvania, and I know that we had 3. The last remaining tannery was started by a man by the name of Mosser. Then it was sold to the Armor Leather Company, and it's now the Brodart Building on our street.